Funhaus is sponsored by ExpressVPN. It's not time to hack. Don't let hackers steal your financial details. Secure your privacy at expressvpn.com/funhaus.
I haven't been on a Funhaus since Rise of Skywalker.
Well, Jacob, you have a brand.
Yeah, I'm starting to see a pattern here.
You have a brand.
Before that, it was Mandalorian.
What do these things have in common? Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Funhaus. I'm Alana. I'm hosting today because I really just wanted to talk about the Clone Wars. So I brought with me Jacob Fullerton, resident Star Wars fan, probably the biggest fan in the office, and also Anthony Carboni, host of the Star Wars show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. Honestly, you guys, this really is happening because I just really needed to talk to people about it since quarantine started. This is when the final season has aired. I've not been able to talk about it anywhere. So I was like, what if I did this? And they were like, okay, as long as you organize it. I was like, great.
Sounds good to me.
Sponsored by Bespoke Post and Feels. We will hear more from them later in the show. But I wanted to spend the start of this talking about what seasons we like the most. The watch order is a thing, kind of angling the start of this to anyone who's not seen the Clone Wars before we jump into fully talking about spoilers for people who watched along with us. So first question being, do you guys have a watch preference?
Like the order that we watch it in?
Yes.
I'll have to think about it.
I just do episode order. I know that there are people that like to rearrange so the events are chronological. And there are people that like to do that with everything in Star Wars, and I feel like you rob yourself of... Oh my gosh, sorry. I thought I had my phone on silent. Wow. What an unprofessional dick. Hey.
Boy.
Wow. Well, fuck me, I guess. What an asshole. No, I know that there are some people that like to watch in chronological order, but I really think why is it still doing this?
Because I can't see what's happening, I'm very curious. To me, I heard what sounded like the PlayStation menu sound. Is that what your ringtone is?
Sorry, I'm finishing up Nobi Boy. That's the last one I bought. Was there anything new in PlayStation since then?
Fine, it's pretty much covered it.
Gotcha.
All of it.
What was that sound? Oh, I got a calendar reminder.
What was I saying? Yeah, everything's going. All these sounds.
What is happening?
What is going on here?
Hot out here. It's hot out here.
No, I was going to say, I think that if you watch things in the chronological order, you kind of rob yourselves of dramatic moments that were set up to be watched in a certain order.
Yeah.
That's why I've never been
it shifts the pacing and.
Yeah, that's why I've never been watch the prequels first. I'm like, well, if you were a kid and you grew up watching the prequels first, sure, watch the prequels first. Whatever Star Wars you watch first is great. And we're glad that you're watching a Star Wars. But I feel like the story is told in a specific order, and every writer who kind of takes over definitely uses our expectations and our knowledge to kind of build the story, So
yeah, it's even in the smallest ways, even if it's chronologically before what's been already happening. It's it's still building on something, even if you're not even if it's not the focus of it.
It is paced in a very particular way. I watched it in order of release, but actually entirely skipped season 1. I've never seen season 1.
Now, I
advised to.
I actually don't mind that because I think particularly the first season, I think they were striking the balance. The team was striking the balance of what does a family show about Star Wars look like, and it leaned, I think, a little. The show grows up with the audience.
Yeah.
And so I do think it gets.
People say it was a little too childish to begin with. And I think a big criticism that I caught because I started watching very late was people really didn't like Ahsoka's character to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Because I haven't seen season 1, I never really had any issues with Ahsoka at all. Was it just that she was a little too childish?
Yeah, I think for some people she felt she was definitely an audience surrogate in the first season for maybe kids who were watching Cartoon Network who were not familiar with Star Wars. And so I think she was a character for that audience to not feel lost and to be able to latch onto. But I do think, and I think they also were trying to figure out exactly what her character was too.
Yeah.
Because if there's any character in the show that's developed the most, it's definitely Ahsoka. Because it kind of just stemmed from her character from
development going on. A lot of good. And I mean, Savage and Maul. I feel like there is some really good stuff there. But
the show develops
for anyone who just
literally every single clone.
Every single clone. Oh my god,
that's really the whole point. Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know at all, the Clone Wars is a 5-season long TV series. I feel like just get that out of the way. It's set between what years is it supposed to be? It's basically just in the middle of the prequels.
Right.
It's
between 2 and 3.
It's between 2 and 3, yeah.
It's between 2 and 3. But there's maybe some overlap. But yeah, it fills in a lot of the gaps between like what happens with Obi-Wan and Anakin in ways that I found very appealing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But isn't it 7 seasons?
It's 7 seasons long, yeah.
Yeah.
7 seasons long.
This is
7
was the last season. 5 was the last one that aired on Cartoon Network.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
6 was Netflix. Like a lost episode season, they called it, right?
Right.
Yes.
And then the 7th season just came out most recently.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Hey, there was a movie.
And there was a movie. There was a movie in theaters.
Yeah. So yeah, I completely skipped season 1, jumped into season 2, had no problems with that. So for anyone who hasn't seen it, if you want to do that, it totally worked just fine for me.
Yeah.
I did that because so many people had told me that watching season 1 is tougher because of some of the themes being more childish or whatever. Yeah. And that's the thing that like I keep wanting to ask people. By the end, I do not feel like this is a kids show.
Yeah, I mean it's appropriate for kids to watch, but I feel like it tackles a lot of relatively mature themes sometimes.
I think
there's like mass decapitation in one scene.
There is that thing, which I think are you talking about Darth Maul?
Yeah, I mean,
chopping all his heads off.
People get their heads chopped off all at one time. It's just like
it's Star Wars. Like there are definitely a lot of arms that people lose too. You'll definitely lose track of all the arms that people lose throughout the series. A couple legs,
loves chopping arms off.
He does.
It's like a pastime for him.
He's a lot more of a bad dude than I really thought he was.
I remember it was actually the first season. There's that episode called Rookies. It's actually a very good episode. It introduces a lot of those clone characters that go throughout the entire show. But I remember watching it when the show started airing, and they were saying like, "What the hell this? What the hell that?" And I'm like, "Oh, they're saying that, huh?" Rookies
is definitely a turning point, I think, in the tone of the show. And once you like Clone Wars, I think if you watch the first couple episodes and you're kind of like, this feels like it's for kids, definitely skip ahead to season 2. You won't be too lost. But then once you do fall in love with it, you're going to want to go back because there are a couple episodes in season 1 that are like, ooh, that's really good.
Oh, so I should do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I still haven't seen it. I skipped it entirely. Felt fine with doing that. Watched everything chronologically or in order of release. I forget which one means which. And I might actually go back. And I know it's Kotaku Australia specifically released a really comprehensive watch order list.
I love that guide. I actually send people that guide.
Yes. Yeah, I might even know about that because of you, actually, Carboni. You might be the one who told me about that list. So I think I want to try it and just see what I think of it in a different order because it's a really pleasant show to watch in a lot of ways, and I would be more than happy to watch through it again. Really easy to get through. Episodes are short.
The season 1, like, sure, the animation's a little rougher because it's from like 12 years ago. But there's still like a lot of really good episodes, and like, sure, there are some childish ones. Like, there's entire arcs with just Jar Jar having adventures, but there's still some like lots of good episodes. The first episode with Yoda, like that, it's great, and it's just Yoda being really cool and spouting off some wisdom and stuff.
Yeah, and in all honesty, like as much as it can feel childish, there's that couple of the really early episodes where they're you know, obviously this is not a spoiler to anybody who's seen Star Wars. They're pretty involved with what's going on with Count Dooku. They definitely want to know where Count Dooku is a lot of the time, and there are a couple episodes where he's on the Malevolent, which is the name of his ship, and it's like, whoa, that got intense really fast. So as much as people say it's for kids, there are some episodes in the beginning there where you're like, yes, this is good, this is Star Wars, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that the show does really well is even if it is, I mean, and Star Wars in general, right, is as much as we like to think it's for adults, it is made for children. George Lucas is very open about Star Wars being for children. It's just so well plotted. I was going to say written, but in some cases I hesitate to say that about Star Wars.
Wow.
It is so well plotted that it still appeals to adults really
you
well.
come into my house.
I know, I'm sorry. I just feel like the Clone Wars does a really good job of children will enjoy it, but at no point does the writing get lazy because it knows that kids don't necessarily care about an emotional plot. It still really got me. I cried in the last season.
Yeah, well,
stuff there that really hurt.
George was definitely always emphatic about how it's for children, but also that children understand more and are capable of more complexity than we give them in media. And so, to say that something is for children doesn't have to be, derisive, right? Like you can look at any Studio Ghibli movie and be like, that's for kids. And it's like, yeah, it's for kids. I'm going to cry for 20 minutes of it.
Yeah.
I mean, Pokemon games for kids, still the highest selling franchise ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That ain't all kids.
Yeah. It doesn't need to be a pejorative term,
Yeah. I mean, I also just appreciate some of the lighthearted arcs that take place. There's one that's just basically a bunch of robots going on an adventure.
Oh my God, I love it.
That's some wonderful stuff too. Yeah.
It's really cute, still very, very heartfelt, and it's like it seems like such a silly thing. And I mean, Jacob, you mentioned Jar Jar's adventures, but even Jar Jar in this show, and this is something that I really love about the Clone Wars, is it's a really good patch for the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
It makes Jar Jar's role and why people even listen to him in any political capacity make a lot more sense. Like he's still silly, he's still Jar Jar, he's still that character.
Yeah.
But I feel like the Clone Wars makes him make sense.
Yeah.
Did a really good job.
I think that's one of the things that is so wonderful about that team is Dave and Athena and that entire team that's over there that's been working on it forever. They love Star Wars so much and they're encyclopedic. They're encyclopedic about it. And it's, you can think of it as a patch, but you can also think of it as like, well, the prequels had 6.5, 7 hours to tell this entire story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna get the broad strokes, you're gonna get the big stuff, you're gonna get the set pieces, but now like let's dive more into all of these characters and all these little things. There was so much space to fill in, I think, between 2 and 3, which is why it was such a great way to go for the first TV series. That it's like, oh, there were so many stories to tell. This is literally an entire war. This is an entire war, and you can tell the entire story of it because the prequels are so into these main characters that we already know, and it's focused on their stories. It kind of just hones into those pinpoints. But man, it's great to see, like you're saying, it's great to see like why are people listening to Jar Jar, and what is Jar Jar's political career like? What is that about?
Yeah,
who are all these clones now that they're made and what they're doing? What do they do all the time? And I think it's just so fun to see all that stuff.
Point for me.
Yes,
I feel like even having the clones
same thing
in general is a very interesting concept. Like the fact that they exist, like what are they like? Are they exactly this? There's so many questions that you could ask that aren't answered in the movies. And I think even George said that in interviews. He was like, I knew that there was a lot of interesting stuff to say about them that we just couldn't say in those films.
And in the movies, like episode 2, you got the beginning of the war. Episode 3 is the end of the war. So there isn't any time to really like humanize these clones other than seeing Tamara Morrison's face in episode 3.
And just like
being able to do that in the show is such a cool,
such a good job of it though. There's so many questions that I had where I was like, well, like I had the question of what would happen if one of them didn't know that they were a clone, and then there's an episode about that.
Yeah,
where, they're being told that they're clones, and you see how they have branching personalities based on the environments that they grow up in and different beliefs.
Yeah,
and
like thinking about like the rights of clones after there's no war, like stuff like that. That's the most intriguing stuff.
One of my favorite things about newer Star Wars stuff, starting with the Clone Wars, is like the asking of those big questions, like, we all call droids buddies, but are they friends? Do we care about them? How much do we care about them? Like, and there are entire stories about that. There are entire stories about the clones. And just like fucking shout out to D. Bradley Baker, who is literally the voice of every clone.
That's not
and plays
entire episodes.
Plays them all differently. There are some episodes where like you're hanging out with 5 clones talking for 20 minutes. And you can close your eyes and know which clone is speaking because of D. Bradley Baker. So
it's never been
behind the
confusing
scenes
to
of
me.
that stuff is nuts. It's like it's so cool to see someone do that many different things in that show.
There's
so
never been a point in this show where I've been confused about which clone is talking or which character I'm watching.
No.
It just does and he does such a good job of just characterizing all of them.
And so I think
there are a lot of characters in this series. There are a lot of people to get attached to, and like I was saying, I ended up definitely with more of an understanding of Anakin for sure. Anakin's one of the only characters that I feel like I still had a bit of a problem with, and that I'm like, I don't know that I think prequel Anakin and Clone Wars Anakin are really the same person. They're very different in a lot of ways, but then there are moments where you're like, and it is a really exciting thing about the show is waiting for Anakin to do something bad because you think that he has it in him, even though he's still good. He hasn't turned yet, obviously. So you're just waiting for like, is Anakin going to do something messed up here?
Yeah.
What's Anakin going to think of this? And that's really fun to watch. But I do feel like there's a bit of a disconnect in how he ends up and how he is in the series. But for the most part, like the clones are so well fleshed out. They're the ones that like emotionally really got me. Like I love those characters so much. And having rewatched the prequels since finishing the series, it's like just such an emotional experience now. Because I'm like, oh no, I care about you guys so much.
I think that's such a wonderful thing about it is you go in because you've seen the movies and you want more stories about, you know, Anakin and Obi-Wan and these characters that you already know, right? And then the clever thing that happens throughout the first season is using that as a hook to then get you into and interested in all of these other characters that are either original or background characters in the movies or just have like much smaller significance in the films. And then by the time you're at the end of the Clone Wars, you're just like, I know who all of these people are. I know who all of these, and I know 100 people that they all know that aren't around anymore. And it's sad. And they're never in the movies, but like you have such a deep understanding of the galaxy of Star Wars afterwards. And it's good. Clone Wars is good. Clone Wars is good.
Good. Big fan. I mean, Order 66, I was so scared about it potentially happening at some point in the show. And we can talk a little bit later about whether it does or does not.
Oh, yeah.
But like just even having that looming as a thing that happens in the prequels, like adding that extra context of how much I care about these individual clones, even though most of them look the same and have the same voice in a lot of cases. Yeah. I just like, oh no, what are you guys going to do? Like you love each other. God damn you, Dooku. It's just so emotional.
I don't know if this gets into the spoiler portion, but I do like to ask everybody who their favorite clone is.
Oh man, that's a toughie. I
feel like I'm cheating, but it's Rex. But like I really feel like
there's no cheating.
I love Rex.
Yeah.
Oh man, what was? Because I like shoot. What was his name?
Let me do the ad read and then we'll come back to you.
I'll think about it.
And we'll after the ad read we'll get into spoiler territory so everyone knows you have a big heads up after this ad. We will start talking about spoilers.
Gotcha.
Okay. Thank you to Bespoke Post for sponsoring this episode. If your mailbox is anything like mine, 90% of the time it's a kind of depressing place. Political flyers, utility bills, unholy amounts of coupons. But once a month, I do have a reason to be stoked, and that's because of my box of awesome from Bespoke Post. I absolutely love my weekender bag specifically. I got this olive, really handy carry bag. You can fit a ton of stuff in it. You could take it to the gym. You could take it to the beach. You could take it on a plane. It's really good for a short trip. I love that thing. It makes packing just a whole lot better and a whole lot cooler. Bespoke Post sends guys only the best stuff every month. No matter what you're into, Box of Awesome has you covered. From style and grooming goods to barware, cooking tools, and outdoor gear, Box of Awesome has carefully built collections for every single part of your life. No joke. They have some really cool bartending stuff, a really neat whiskey guide that's up right now called Dram. There are shaving kits. There's clothing. There's tons of stuff that you can get available on there right now. So to get started, take the quiz at boxofawesome.com. Your answers will help them pick the right box of awesome for you, and they release new boxes every month across a ton of categories. Get 20% off your first monthly box when you sign up at boxofawesome.com and enter code FILMHOUSE at checkout. That's boxofawesome.com with the code FILMHOUSE for 20% off your first box. Jacob,
yes.
Get it out yet.
Okay, I remembered his name. Because it was a little bit different than normal clone names, but it was like LaQuain, Cut LaQuain, the deserter clone. And he's only in one episode.
Oh yes, I know who you're talking about.
But
yeah. He's like a kind of bad man, and he's out there like spreading his propaganda. The one episode where you see him to the other clones.
Yeah, yeah, and it just makes it. Hold on, let me look. Quain, there he is.
Yeah, he's cool.
I need to see him. But yeah, it's like you see him. He's a deserter, and he has a family and stuff because he's actually like decided this whole being forced into this whole thing.
Marries a Twi'lek, very progressive.
Yeah,
you know.
Definitely.
he walked so Kanan and Jarrus could run. You know what I mean?
I'd have
again. The thing about the clones is you hear a lot of different perspectives from each of them, including I don't remember his name either, but the clone who's basically like defective.
99.
Yeah, there are a few different defects, and then 99. In the last season we have the bad bunch or bad batch, I think they call them. Yeah. So it's like even though they all come from the same place, they are all really, really distinct, and I love that they explored that as creatively as they did, because there was just so much to get into. But really, the thing that I want to talk about, the thing that made me cry, was Order 66 being executed in the final season.
Yeah. Spoilery now?
Yeah. And cool. Rex pulling his gun up to Ahsoka in a room full of these clones that have painted their helmets with her face markings because they're so excited to see her after not having seen her for a while. And then Rex like points his gun at her and is crying and tells her to run, because you know that he's trying to go against this programming he doesn't understand, but he can't do it. And I just started crying. I was just like, oh my God.
Anakin's Dark Deed starts playing. I listened to that soundtrack. But it's like, that's one of those things when we're talking about like watch order and stuff, is the reason that whole episode is so tense and so uncomfortable is because you know that it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the music's really eerie and stuff, and there's like, because you know, like this is the episode where shit's gonna go down and everything's gonna turn it on its head, and like Ahsoka's gonna get betrayed, and she doesn't know what's gonna happen, but we know it's gonna happen.
Yeah, so it's like how is it gonna happen? Where is it gonna happen? There's so much like
so you're just waiting.
Yeah. Oh God. And when he calls out in that scene,
really well.
When he says find fives, because Fives knew, and Fives tried to warn everybody.
Yeah, they covered it up and believe him. 4 or 5. Yeah, I absolutely love that. And you're right, like that does pertain to the existing watch order, to making sure that you've seen probably all of the prequels before watching the show, even though it technically exists in between two of those films, because it does rely on the tension of you knowing what that all means for something to kick in. They use that dramatic tension so well. It was just like, I was just so nervous.
Yeah.
Like even leading season 7, I was like, I don't actually know if it's gonna overlap. I don't know if that's going to happen. And when it did, it was just so emotional. I feel like I didn't love the first like 3 episodes of the season. Was just Ahsoka and the Spice Runner stuff. Felt a little bit fillery to me.
Yeah, the second arc. Yeah, second arc. First arc is
after the Bad Batch.
First arc is Finding Echo.
You're right, it's Bad Batch. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Finding Echo, and then which was also really cool.
Yeah,
I liked Ahsoka and Trace, and I kind of dig that, and I kind of dig the turning of the focus back to Ahsoka, and like, because playing on our preconceived notions again, it's like we know Ahsoka disappears, we know Ahsoka comes back in Rebels, right? And it's like, well, what was she doing and what's happening? And so kind of like telling this smaller story about her and kind of how she finds her own sort of moral compass after leaving the Jedi is really, really good. And I do have to say, the first time they call her Fulcrum, I fucking flip my shit. Have y'all watched Rebels? Are you Rebels fans?
Yeah.
Oh my God. The first time they call her Fulcrum, I'm like, yeah! I was like, live your life.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, that there is like an important progression from her there. I guess like I just wanted shit to go down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that felt like an arc to me that should have been in the previous season.
Yeah.
But I guess like, timing wise, it doesn't really make sense. But yeah, like thinking about some of my favorite arcs in general, I liked the Echo thing a lot. I felt like that was like almost a cool Easter egg. I really love that Yoda arc where he has to go off and figure out what Force ghosts mean.
Yes.
Like, that was really cool. Just like, I'd watch a whole show of little Yoda's adventures, and everyone just lets this old man go, and they're like, hey, Yoda wants to do it, man.
Anakin has to help him sneak out of the hospital.
Yeah, he's literally in the hospital, and he has to get out of there. Like, I really loved that.
You get that cool Mark Hamill cameo, the Darth Bane.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love stuff like that where it answers questions that everybody else has by letting the characters figure that out too. Because we've all been like, so what's a Force ghost though? And like, why aren't they hanging around all the time? Like, and there's I
just keep thinking that stuff would have been hard. It would have been hard to write, and I feel like they did a very good job.
Oh yeah,
like I don't imagine that was easy by any stretch to fill in what the hell a Force ghost is and how they suddenly showed up. But they make it this like dramatic, emotional journey about, and it's also uplifting. The ending of that arc is like, it means something. It's like, no matter what, we win. Like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. You're gonna be all right.
You get to watch Yoda fight a little gremlin evil Yoda.
Yeah.
So good.
Blink. What Yoda? But I also really want to give a shout out to, and I'm sure these are like staples that everyone gives a shout out to when it comes to different arcs. The Night Sister stuff.
Sure.
I really loved.
I have a crush on every Night Sister, and it's fine.
I know. As soon as I saw them, I was like, I need to cosplay one of these.
Yeah. Ventress has like such a cool arc as well.
Yeah. Oh
throughout
god.
the entire show.
Ventress is amazing. Jamie King fucking kills it too.
Yeah, like one of my favorite episodes is like the one where they're on the train and she's helping all the bounty hunters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like that episode is so cool and so fun.
Well, and I love her involvement with like little Boba too, because that's one of my favorite arcs. Is like little Boba's revenge. Oh,
yeah.
I love that, and I love how she shows up and she's kind of like, okay, you're going to be a bounty hunter, huh? Here's what being a bounty hunter is.
Yeah, I'll show you. She's so cool.
So cool.
The only thing that ever gets me about her that really drove me nuts the whole time was that she always says that Dooku betrayed her.
Mm-hmm.
He did drop you. You fucked up, so he fired you. That's not a betrayal.
She doesn't see it that way. She does not see it that way.
You because you were a bad apprentice.
She thinks maybe there could have been some sort of review process, you know, at her quarterly. Certainly, she doesn't get a raise, but like, come on.
Yeah, no severance or anything.
I have to say,
God damn it.
One of my favorite ones is like a very dividing one, but I like Mortis. I really like Mortis. I know that gets a little too like, some people think it's too floofy and Shakespearean and like mystical and whatever. But I love
that. Like I thought that was a really cool touch. Like it's a thing I didn't expect to exist in that world.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm totally cool with it. Yeah,
it expands the universe a little bit.
Expands the universe. I love that. That's a good term.
We should use that or something.
We should use that.
It's very pretty.
That's only like, it's just one episode, isn't it? Is that multiple episodes, Mortis? I feel like it's just one.
I don't remember.
I could be wrong. But yeah, very, very cool stuff. Like it was really weird. And
it's part of and I love, the father and the son and fucking Whitwer. I'm going to mention Whitwer 18 times while we talk about this.
He does so well.
Listen.
Yeah, he was supposed to be on the show today, but couldn't make it, which is such a bummer.
Good. Fuck that guy. Fuck that beautiful, perfect, kind, talented, wonderful man.
Yeah, he's a really good guy.
He's a dear friend, and I'll push him off a cliff. How dare he?
I also just love how passionate about the character he is and how well that really shows. Like he really clearly cares about Maul, and Maul's also an interesting one because this is another disconnect that I had. Maul in the movie and Maul in the show are very, very, very different. And at first I found that really conflicting because Maul in the show, at least initially, is like, I want to say spindly, but that's just cheating because he's just kind of he's just this like weedy, like weak, like really manic.
Yeah.
Like he's just very damaged in a way that I was like, but Maul's so composed. But then you're like, yeah, but think about literally what he's been through.
They cut him in half and threw him down a hole, and he came back a spider. He's allowed to be a little mad.
He was isolated for a really long time.
Stuck with that like asshole eel.
Yeah.
I forgot about that character
from Lord of the Rings.
God.
I'm an evil eel. I'm fucking with Darth Maul all the time.
I fucking love an evil eel. Love an evil eel.
It's just a weird talking worm. It's so great.
I also love
for that one episode.
I also love Spider Maul. Like I'll say it. I know some people fucking hate Spider Maul, but I think it's dope.
Yeah.
When I was told about Spider Maul before having seen the show, I was like, that's absolutely ridiculous and I hate it. And then I saw it and I was like, into it.
Yeah, it's like one of those things that like it sounds goofy on paper, but then you see how his like personality is and how like Sam Witwer like performs as him. And then like even in those moments of focus where he remembers like, oh, I fucking hate Jedi a lot.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, he's still
that's
scary.
His whole drive is he just hates Obi-Wan. And then, I mean, that is my favorite episode in Rebels as well.
Yes.
Is the Maul v. Obi-Wan. I love that so much. His whole arc is so great. And just like the way that fight is won, I absolutely adore. Like the composure of it and the lack of control and Maul's whole purpose really being to try and kill Obi-Wan.
Man, Twins, that's the thing is like Rebels has so many huge moments like that, and Twin Sons is a perfect Star Wars moment, and it's a huge Star Wars moment. Like, and I know we're not talking about Rebels, but like Clone Wars is a Maul show, you know, and Rebels, and Rebels is like less so, but Maul is like when he's there, he's pretty fucking important, and seeing closure to that entire storyline in Rebels is wild. Wild, because it sneaks up on you.
As important as we would have thought he was based on the pre-episode 1 trailers. They make him really, really important. And
also has one of my favorite moments, is a small aside, is Ezra pops up, look guys, I found help, and it's fucking Darth Maul.
That's so good.
He looks so evil. It's so malevolent. I was like, oh no.
I just get excited every single time that Clone Wars would have the red. The title would be red instead of yellow, which would indicate that it was a Maul episode. I love that they did that. I basically get chills. It was so cool. And I love Savage too. Like I love Savage as a character. And the fact that you see him like being plucked and then taken to Dooku, and basically the way the Night Sisters are even using him and giving him his powers, and then Maul fucking discards him. Like I really loved watching all of that happen too. It's just like these characters with these different religions almost that I didn't know existed that really interconnect in a really beautiful way. I was very into it. Also, just a shout out to Cad Bane. I just need to get just a fucking shout out to that dude.
Just that voice.
His like weird like Pennsylvania Dutch accent. I fucking love it.
Yeah.
He's so great.
Cad Bane is very good.
Episode's great.
Don't
forget.
he takes part in one of my favorite episodes, which is a very silly episode that I absolutely adore. And it's Zero the Hutt. It's the
I was gonna bring up Zero the Hutt.
It's the film noir episode with Zero the Hutt, where Cy Snoodles is the fucking femme fatale.
Yeah.
But they're both doing it to each other the whole episode. They're both like, oh, hey, baby, I missed you. And then you don't know which one of them's going to win, but they're both playing each other with this stupid shit.
Dude,
it's insane.
Cy Snoodles is the babe with the smoking gun.
Yeah.
in a noir story. Just is
the fact that they chose her rather than making a new character entirely is very funny to me.
Well, I love
Jacob,
that.
I feel like you could do a good Zero impression.
He's like, he's talking like this all the time. He's like, I hate being in prison.
Yep, 10 out of 10 perfect.
God.
He's always like, oh my.
The first time you hear him speak and you're just like, what? You're just like,
oh my.
The fact that you see more of the Hutts and they're all just absolutely different. Like mob bosses from a movie is
don't forget Mama the Hutt.
Mama the Hutt.
Zero's mom.
Fuck, what a good series.
And it's like this weird Bayou crime family. Like I just love it. Oh God, there's so many weird ideas. And the thing about the Clone Wars is like, it's like you're saying, Alana, when you hear somebody describe these ideas to you, if you're somebody who's only seen the films, you're like, that's the wildest, weirdest, most out there shit I've ever heard. And I can't imagine it's cool. Like, I just can't imagine it's cool. And then you watch it and you're like, fuck, that was cool.
Yeah. And like, there's with Revenge of the Sith, you had General Grievous, who is just a cartoon villain. And he's so like wacky. and like having him just be a recurring villain in Clone Wars is like the perfect place for him after his like small moments in the movie.
Oh my gosh!
I ever told you my thing about Grievous. So there's like this weird subculture of people who want to fuck Grievous.
Like,
I'm
like
not one
Grievous
of those.
thirst.
I'm not one of those.
That's not weird.
But I love Grievous because I've always had an attachment as a kid who grew up with asthma and just sometimes couldn't partake in the cool kid sports because I would not be able to breathe or whatever. And I didn't know why that was happening when I was a child. Seeing a character with a lot of power, even though he's a villain, have a cough.
Yeah.
Just always struck me in the heart as like, oh my God, does he have what I have? Does he have the chest thing that I have? And so I've always really, really, really loved Grievous. And there's a lot of moments about Grievous that I really love in the Clone Wars too. Like particularly, I saw someone mention it on Twitter, and then it all like pieced together that Grievous basically runs away from every fight.
Yeah.
He'll just bounce.
He's a fucking coward.
He loses.
He's a cartoon villain.
He just runs away, and I love that.
It's a tactical retreat.
Yeah, always tactically retreats. He just is always running.
One of the funniest things, it's just a result of a throwaway line from Revenge of the Sith, is that Anakin and Grievous cannot meet in the show because they meet for the first time in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't know who Grievous. He knows who Grievous is, but he doesn't see him, so they can't be in the same place. And so like that's why there's so much G.I. Joe running away. Like that's one of the things that I love about I kind of love and hate about the fact that, you know, they have to be inside of this continuity is the first couple of seasons do get this. It is a cartoon series, but it gets a cartoon series feeling because it's like Dooku's always like, and they will never see me and I will run away. And it's like, okay. And it feels very Cobra Commander, you know?
Yeah.
One thing I want to say, if you're a huge Grievous fan, you absolutely have to go back and watch season 1, because Lair of Grievous in season 1 is gonna you're gonna love Lair of Grievous. It's Kit Fisto versus
said the exact same thing to me. He was like, "You need to go watch Lair of Grievous. Just go watch that." So I might make sure I do that because I missed all of it. I also love Kit Fisto.
Yeah,
like,
it's basically just like his haunted house lair that they have to find him in and stuff.
But also like
it's great.
Yeah,
you see, it tells like the origin of, like, we know the origin of Grievous, but it's cool to watch these characters go through and see the origin of Grievous, right?
Yeah.
And see like
so do you see the origin of Grievous as in like when he was still mostly organic?
Yeah, so
they statues of him.
You see,
it goes back that far.
Yeah, it's his lair. It's where he's always been and where he's like done these things to himself. And it's like it's cool
to me, though. Maybe I did end up looking it up on a YouTube. Like, unless there's another episode somewhere in the series that you see his statues, I do feel like I may have seen that. Maybe I did already look that up and look up pictures or something, because
Kit Fisto filled episode too.
Yeah,
hell yeah.
Any Kit Fisto episode is good. Any Kit Fisto is good. If you see Kit Fisto, run towards it as fast as you can.
Same as Cad Bane, same as Grievous, same as Rex. Like, there are so many, and I love so many of the. Which I also really like this about the prequels. Any episode that is Obi-Wan's detective adventures.
Yes.
I love it when Obi-Wan just goes off on a little detective hunt to figure stuff out.
And Obi-Wan and Sabine. Obi-Wan and Sabine is so good, and like, yeah, man, Obi-Wan is very good. It's funny because in the first season he's a little too calling everybody darling and stuff. Like, they were like, you could.
Interesting.
They were
suave.
He was a little too suave, right? Like,
interesting. That's weird.
They dial it back like a little bit. They get a good handle on it, but it's very interesting the first season. But I do love everything where Obi-Wan is being a smart detective. Everything where Obi-Wan is talking to Sabine, and you kind of get this idea of, you know, in the movies, he plays himself like somebody who never had to give anything up, right? And so it's good to see the choice that Obi-Wan did make decisions.
I think that also gives strength to the conflict with Anakin and Padme, is that you've seen Obi-Wan have that temptation and succeed. You know that it can be done. So everything that he's saying to Anakin, even though he's clearly aware of what's happening with Padme, I remember in season 7, there's a line where he's like, was he talking to Padme?
Yeah.
Or like, tell Padme I said hi.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit.
Like, no.
Right.
Like, I know what you're doing. Like,
it's so cool. But it like, I feel like it does give more strength to the idea that Obi-Wan's like, no, just don't do it, dude.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to do this. What are you doing? And it would be so hard to like trust Obi-Wan, but he's really cold. He's a really cold hero. He's very much to the core Jedi.
Yeah. And I think it's, you know, it's it does lend depth to that like brother's relationship or even that father-son relationship where it's like your parents tell you something and you're like, what the fuck do you know? And then you see like your first picture of them when they were teenagers and you're like, oh right, you had a life. This isn't just coming from nowhere.
Yeah, you do know what you're talking about. And that stuff is really sad too. It's like a lot of rough stuff that happens to Obi-Wan that I feel like doesn't necessarily shape him. It just proves how strong he is.
Yeah.
Like he just really sticks to his convictions in a way that Anakin absolutely can't. And it also like I think adds some criticism to Obi-Wan as a character and shows part of why Anakin failed is ultimately because he just didn't really get love and support ever in his whole life. I know there was that Dave Filoni like clip that came out that I think I texted both of you about after seeing the movie, where he's talking about like how the death of Qui-Gon is the start of Vader, because it's basically Anakin losing any father figure he ever had, and Obi-Wan should have stepped in and been that person, but he just never was. He just doesn't have it in him to be a father figure. He was more of a teacher the whole time, or a brother even.
Well, and you think
brother once he becomes a Jedi Knight.
And you think about like the way all decisions are made by the council throughout the series and throughout the films, and they are very like tactical and withholding and keep feelings out of this. And one thing that we see about Qui-Gon in the short time that we know Qui-Gon Jinn is like he was able to do the right thing and still have a heart the way we sort of expected Jedi to be, because up until then, you know, if you would only watch the films, you only really knew Luke, right? Or you knew you knew Yoda. And so you see Qui-Gon and you're like, yeah, that's a Jedi. And then when you watch the rest of the Jedi, you're like, oh no, that's a Jedi. Oh no.
They are all really different, to be honest.
There is that line in
Qui-Gon is the ideal.
That line in Phantom Menace where like, because he's constantly defying the Jedi and being how he is, which is like how we kind of view an ideal Jedi, he's not even worthy of being on the council in their eyes. Yeah.
But you do see, like, to Alana's point, you do see, it's not to say they're all carbon copy cold. Like, one of my favorite things about this season was watching Plo Koon when he's like, when he's stranded with the clones, and he's like, he's always very positive towards them. And he's always like, I will put myself in danger for you. I'm going to do the right thing here. And, you know, you watch him when he was with Ahsoka and you're like, this is a good dude. Plo Koon is a good dude. You know, more Plo Koon in our lives.
Yeah, it's like you never would have thought that before this show. Just a background character in a chair.
Hey man, I cried because of clones, so never would have expected any of that to happen. The fucking masks. The Gentle Giant are coming out with a bust of literally like a clone trooper with the Ahsoka markings painted on it, and I was like, I have to buy that.
Listen,
that meant so much to me.
Knock on wood.
They're all so excited, and they didn't know.
They didn't know. And that's what's fucking wild. Is I saw that moment, and when you first see that moment, you're like, this is really beautiful, and then you're like, oh no! Like everything in those last couple episodes is just like, no.
Yeah. I mean, the dread leading up to that, dude. Like that whole time that I was like, they're too excited to see her. It's gonna happen. Isn't it?
Yeah.
They're way too excited to see her again. Oh fuck.
And them just like humanizing the clones a lot in the show is great, because like in the movie, Order 66 happens, and like Obi-Wan and Yoda are chopping off clones' heads and limbs and stuff, just get like mowing through them to get where they need to go. But in the end of Clone Wars, like you still see that Ahsoka has like so much love and respect for all these men that just betrayed her. And like she like her and Rex take the time to like bury them and stuff, and like are never at any point like malicious towards them.
Listen, y'all know how I feel about y'all know how I feel about gratuitous Vader. I feel like Vader is to be saved for very specific moments outside of the original trilogy, right? Like there is a thing, we all want more Vader, we all want tons and tons and tons of Vader. Vader fucking rules, but
he's got to be special.
It's got to be special. When Vader shows up, you got to know it's a huge thing because he's so huge, right? And man, the final shot.
Not yet. No, stop it. I'm going to cut to ad read, and then you're going to come back, and we're going to talk about the final shot.
Okay.
I feel like it's good.
That's good producing.
I am saving the Vader. I am making it special. Shut your mouth.
Nice. You could be Star Wars.
Thank you to Fields for sponsoring this episode of Funhaus. Do you experience stress or have anxiety or chronic pain or have trouble sleeping at least once a week? You're not alone. Many of us do. Personally, I have major issues with sleeping and definitely a lot of chronic pain, which Feels, if you haven't already heard of it, can really help out with. Feels is premium CBD delivered directly to your doorstep, and it naturally helps to reduce stress, anxiety, pain, and sleeplessness. It's really easy to take. You just place a few drops of Feels under your tongue and feel the difference within a couple of minutes. The thing to remember about CBD is that finding a right dose is important, and everyone's dose is different, so leave room to experiment over the course of a week or so. You may need to take more or less to get the effects you're after. If you're new to CBD, Feels offers a free CBD hotline to help guide your personal experience. It works naturally to help you feel better. There's no high, hangover, or addiction. Join the Feels community to get Feels delivered to your door every month. You'll save money on every order, and you can pause or cancel at any time. To become a member today, go to feels.com/filmhouse, and you'll get 50% off your first order with free shipping. That's FEALS.com/filmhouse to become a member and get 50% automatically taken off your first order with free shipping. Feels.com/filmhouse. And go ahead.
So Vader is only to be used. It's like he's a fire alarm. You don't pull Vader. You know what I mean? Unless you absolutely need to. And that last shot where he's there and he finds her saber and he doesn't know yet what's happened. He doesn't know what's happened to her, right?
I keep asking everyone for that shot. What do you think Vader's emotions were?
That's the thing, right? That's the thing about the Clone Wars, and that's the thing that makes this movie that makes this series so brilliant, is it fleshes out Anakin so much that you can watch the emotionless mask of Vader pick up this saber and look at it and stare into the sky, and you know that he is fucking hurt and he's sad, but he's angry, right? Because he's always angry now.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
I mean, we have that episode, which was the touch that I really loved, where you see Anakin see the future.
Yes.
And
that's on Mortis. That's on Mortis, baby.
It is on Mortis. It happens to Ahsoka too. I think she kind of gets possessed that episode maybe as well.
Mm-hmm, she does.
It was around that time. But when he sees everything that happens in the future, he immediately turns into Vader. Like he sees everything and is immediately evil. There's no question there about everything that Anakin has seen in his future that he would ever not become Vader. So it was always something that was in him. It was always something that was going to happen. There was no like changing that lineup.
Yes.
And I think like especially having that shot at the very end of everything that's happened there with knowing that he was going to become Vader and him still like you still think maybe the one thing that can make this dude sad is knowing or thinking Ahsoka is dead.
Yeah. And what I love about that is it's sort of mirrored a little bit in the shot where Ahsoka is outside. We haven't even fucking touched on Mandalorians yet, by the way, y'all. We haven't even, there's a lot to come. But he's standing outside of Maul's frozen, and she's standing outside where Maul's imprisoned, and she sees what's happening. She sees a flash of everything that's happening the same way Anakin does, and it doesn't make her evil. It tests her resolve, and she's like, okay, I still have a chance to save everyone. And I think that's what's amazing is like Anakin can look at all of those things in his head on Mortis and say like, well, I can avoid this, right? Like, how do I make better decisions? And no, doesn't even think for once that any of his decisions were wrong or bad, or he's fallible in any way. He's fucking Anakin Skywalker. And if this is the future, this is who he's going to become.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I found that like to be a really smart thing for them to do. Like, I like that it didn't have maybe he could change his mind if only he knew. It's nope. It's happening.
Because I think that's a big thing that a lot of people ask when they first start diving into more Star Wars, right? Like when somebody watches the films and they're like, okay, now more Star Wars. Where is it?
Yeah.
That's one of the big questions is like, I don't know. He was a sweet little kid. We saw it. He was a sweet little kid. Like, isn't he still, he cares about Obi-Wan. He cares about Padme. Like, couldn't this be avoided? And it's good to be like,
the Oxford really jealous of shit Padme does.
God.
Oh my God.
He like beats the shit out of what's his name, like Rush Clovis.
Oh God.
Oh my God. I was uncomfortable watching that.
Oh yeah, it's messed up. He's a
Like,
dick.
oh my God,
I mean,
he's
that's
gonna
one
kill
thing
him.
that never made sense to me. Like the whole series is Padme, you're too fucking smart for this, dude. Come on.
Yeah,
Like,
I think
like, you are way better
my
than
God.
him. Get out of there.
Padme, you got to stop dating. He's basically a space musician. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, Padme, you got to stop dating musicians. It's
You're
not
so smart.
I get it.
on.
He's cool looking and he's brooding and he's in a band, but you know better. Like, you know better.
Yeah, he's got a skateboard, but come on.
Come on. I think one of the things that the series does really well, though, is it shows that they are apart most of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they are being kept apart, and neither one of them is a person that likes being told what to do especially if there's not a reason that they can see for being told what to do. And so I think one of the things that the series does show really well is like, oh, this is a long distance thing that they're trying to hold together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
They're trying real hard to make it work.
Yeah. There are inside stresses that they're not seeing because there are so many outside stresses in the relationship. You know what I mean? And they're like, okay, we've all been there. Maybe not in space, but we've all been there.
We didn't have holograms in our long distance relationship.
Jealous teenager. It's just so funny to me.
Yeah.
Oh man, he's such a prick. No, I love it. But I feel like we haven't really spoken about Ahsoka as a character who, in theory, is the main character of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, by the end
obviously
of it,
we touched on her at the start, but yeah. So like I said earlier, my understanding was that people didn't like her so much, and then ended up really loving her at the end. And I did feel like she was a really just. It's not even necessarily that it's about her. I feel like it more is a show about the clones and about Anakin, but it uses Ahsoka to be the vessel to have all of the emotional attachments and reactions from all of those parties in a way that I think is very, very, very important. But she also has a ton of development herself. There are a lot of conflicts with her and Anakin, the things that they disagree with. But when I actually think about it, I don't feel like she developed as much as like Obi-Wan did in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't feel like I saw as much change in Ahsoka, and I keep wondering if I was looking at it the wrong way or not paying enough attention to her, that I didn't feel like she changed that much having not seen season 1.
It kind of just depends on the role she's in, because like very early on and in the movie and stuff, she's like the plucky new apprentice. She's gonna grind her master's gears and stuff. Yeah, oh my god.
Anakin gets an Anakin is the way the first season worked, right?
Yeah.
Anakin gets an Anakin and now he gets it, right?
Yeah. As she gets more responsibility and is like given more like autonomy and stuff, she becomes like a more serious character. And especially you see in the final season, she's like very like stoic and calm and stuff.
I mean,
like,
what happens to her is pretty shit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They done her dirty. I would not be pleased if I was her either. I get it.
It makes you very upset at the Jedi.
Yeah, which I like.
that
I like
whole
that too. I like that it does throw the Jedi under the bus a lot. Like, it does that as well. It shows them making mistakes, and I think that's, for the good guys, I feel like that doesn't happen that often in any entertainment media.
Mm-hmm.
They're so careful with the good guys, but the Jedi are absolutely not perfect.
Yeah, being a Jedi doesn't make you perfect. Yeah.
And I love, I do love that we sort of see like her moral compass and how steadfast she is, because another purpose she serves before I think she really comes into her own, or before we know enough about her, is she's like the little bird on Anakin's shoulder, right? She's like the little angel on his shoulder that's like, but couldn't we do the right thing? Right. And she doesn't understand.
She is very moral.
Yeah, she's very moral, and she doesn't understand that what she's actually doing is teaching Anakin to go against orders and the system more. Like, she's actually like, but Master, couldn't we do it? And he's like, you know what? You're right. Fuck the Jedi Council.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the lesson we should take from this.
That is really true. She's the one who teaches him that. And it is like kind of a nice thing about the show as well, is that the Jedi just have jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like in the movies, you don't see them just have day jobs, whereas they really do in this series. It's like you're watching them go on assignment and deal with things in a like professional capacity. Like sometimes they're a bodyguard, sometimes it's mediation. Like, I love seeing them as like little business boys with jobs.
Yeah, that's one of the other things I like about the Zero one too, right? Is it's like, they like, sorry, you're a space cop, and that means you have to escort this prisoner, and it sucks, and this guy sucks. And it's like,
those are the rules.
He's the best.
But he is the best. But one of the things that I think is great is like, when you get to the end of season 5 and you get to Ahsoka on the run, right? And you see how quickly it's like, well, this is the procedure and this is what we think about you. And I guess now we chase you and hunt you. and you're just like, what the fuck, guys? Take a breath.
It's brutal.
Look at the situation for a second, please.
And I think by the time you get to the end of that, like, even though they were kind of asserting it all along, you really do see it's like, oh, well, maybe if anybody's a Jedi, it actually is Ahsoka. Like, maybe she's the person that we're looking for now that Qui-Gon's gone, you know? And so it's cool to, like, by the end of season 5, because you're right, it does sneak up on you. But by the time you get to the end of season 5, you're just like, oh, I like Ahsoka, and Ahsoka's very good. And I see that being a thing. Like, I feel like maybe I just like didn't really give. I definitely like her, but I feel like I never gave her enough credit because I was so caught up in everything else. And that is maybe like a second watch through thing, is paying more attention to just Ahsoka being Ahsoka rather than Ahsoka being a vessel for everyone else.
Yeah,
she feels like a video game protagonist that fills in the blanks for me in a lot of ways. So it's not like I felt like I had a huge affinity to her. Like I said, the Order 66 thing got me because I felt so bad for the clones, and Rex crying through his order being executed destroyed me. I didn't feel bad for Ahsoka. I was just like, but the clones, oh my God.
Yeah.
So upsetting. Jacob, I don't know if you ended up answering the question. I feel like you may have. It's just my head's jumping a million places. So trying to fit everything I want to say about this show into an hour. Did you have a favorite arc? Did you mention?
I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's one of my favorites for sure. And it's another clone one. It's the whole Umbara arc.
Yes.
And I'm not just saying that because Pong Krell is a Jack Dexter Jetster.
I fucking love Pong Krell.
But man, that's another episode where it's like, here is a Jedi who's just an asshole.
Yeah.
He's like a crazy, prejudiced maniac. And he does he's a villain by the end, but
just a real prick. Does some pretty messed up stuff.
But that's it. But that's, and it's so good because it is a reminder that, like, we're following around the best of the best all the time, right? Like, we're following the good guys, right? And so when you see Pong Krell, he's just like, they're fucking clones, dude. What you do is you send them over there and they get blown up. It doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, they're just fake people.
Yeah.
I'll just throw them at each other.
We'll make more people.
Really
I don't know. Yeah,
I'll fuck with them, make them kill each other instead.
It's so awful. Like that
terrible.
watching that is so harrowing. You're just like, God damn, dude. Like, and the moment when they realized, because you realized at the same time, I don't think that I had an inkling beforehand that was what was happening, or not too much beforehand, and you realize what's happening, and watching the clones have to disobey their orders because they've just been played by someone who doesn't see them as people is pretty rough shit.
Yeah, who's also a Jedi Master and the person they're supposed to follow all the orders of.
Yeah,
oh
a lot
my
of them
God.
are so well trained that they try to do that as much as they possibly can.
Yeah, dogma.
Yeah. I love that, like, the way that they differentiate the clones with the different markings and stuff too.
Yeah, all their tats and their haircuts.
All very good stuff. Yeah, that Bad Batch all looked like completely different.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I think it was Bad Batch, right? That was what it was called.
Yeah.
I was a fan.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, like, just sitting down and, like, just drawing in a notebook or in a sketchbook or whatever, like 1,500 different clones. You know what I mean? Like, they all basically look the same, but you get to do it's got to be so much fun to just go through and make every permutation of this one guy that you can. That must have been a blast for the team.
He does a great job with voice acting that too. Just fantastic stuff.
It's amazing.
It's awesome. Yeah.
I'm glad we got so much of it in the last season.
Yeah. Before we wrap this up, I did just want to talk about a little bit about the insane production value of the final season. That I felt like it was beautiful. Explosions. Every time I was like, look at that explosion.
Yeah.
The score is fantastic, but it also had a lot more silence than I think the show had before that point. I feel like it was a very loud show that felt like it had to rush a lot of conversations in some cases because it needed to be like really
always
high energy.
Soundtrack blaring and stuff.
Yeah, the last season has a lot of like ambient sounds and a lot more slow.
I noticed that during some of the Bad Batch stuff, it's like they'd go and be fighting droids, but there wouldn't be music. It would just be them just like running through a room and shooting lasers and stuff, and it kind of like just makes it feel. I don't know if like grounded is the right word.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It just like feels more like real in a certain way.
It's more tense. You put that John Williams or that Kevin Kiner music behind anything and it becomes high adventure, right? And so you really just they're in the shit and it's the middle of a war. And so hearing every sound of the fight and just the silence and you know that they're waiting for like the next trap to be sprung on them does give it like a lot more dramatic depth. And I feel like the emotional, like some more of the character-based emotional stuff benefited from a lot more silence too. A lot of the stuff with Ahsoka, and and Rafa and Trace, you know, where they're thinking about, all three of them have these like different ideas about what's the right thing to do in the situation, and they just sit in silence and think about it. Was really cool to watch.
A lot of like really nice panning shots, and
I also wanted to bring up the like using Ray Park's mocap.
Yes.
When they fight each other, and like what's the person who does the mocap for Ahsoka? I just like saw her name for the first time when I was watching the behind the scenes stuff. Let me look it up real quick.
I don't know, unfortunately, but
it's Lauren Mary Kim. Lauren Mary Kim.
Incredible.
Yeah.
When you see that behind the scenes stuff, the way they fight, and then you compare it to the animation, it just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So well done.
Like that combined with Sam Witwer's Darth Maul, it's like, oh, they've made the complete Darth Maul in this scene.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it really was the full performance of Darth Maul.
And hearing either one of them talk about it, it's great because they have such respect for each other as performers too. You know, talking about it when Solo happened, and then when this last season happened. Like if you talk to Ray about Maul, he'll be like, couldn't happen without Sam. And then you talk to Sam, and he's like, couldn't happen without Ray. And I feel like they really do kind of watch and listen to each other's performances and like build that character together. And fuck, they're both talented to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also kind of one of the only instances where the audience is open to that too. Like I feel like everyone has mutual respect for both of them and what both of them are doing. Whereas in a lot of cases, I think audiences be like, no, this is the real Maul. But everyone's like, no, they both really put
it
feels
like natural.
I think it's kind of lucky, you know, in the sense that it's always been that way. You know, like Ray, even in the movies, Ray never did the vocal performance for Maul. So it's kind of something where since we were introduced to Maul, we were like, oh, this is the way Maul works, which I think helps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely a testament to Sam that he has become synonymous with a character that existed long before he started playing that character without it being forced or anything. Like,
and
he's just done such a fantastic job.
The stroke of the stroke of genius between everybody like collaborating on it to just be like, Maul is a Shakespearean monologuing villain, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
Are you sure? He's a quiet warrior monk. Are you sure? He's like, no. He's got a lot of things to say. And I was like,
oh yeah,
really? But it works so well.
So good.
So well. And by the time you get to the end and you're like, of course this guy is like building all the syndicates. Of course this guy is going to be the head of crime soon. Like, this is
Getting
amazing.
Him all tied up in the Mandalore arc where the Republic has no like place or anything.
Oh, Mandalore!
It works so well.
It's so good.
It is very good,
folks. I think Clone Wars might be a good show.
Yeah,
I think so too.
I really, again, wanted to do this just so I could like yell at both of you about how much I enjoyed the show, because I don't want to tweet about it because I don't want to spoil it, and also it's like not a great way to have conversations. But then I don't have that many friends who've seen it, so it's just been like, what if I just make a podcast?
And so continues the long tradition of anybody in this industry going, if I do a show about it, will I have friends?
I can talk about it.
If I do a show about it, will friends that like it come? Will they appear?
Yes.
Every time I see these invites for these Star Wars podcasts, I'm like, I get to talk about Star Wars finally.
As a job, it's the best. So I guess before we wrap up, is there anything else that either of you wanted to say? Any closing thoughts on the Clone War?
I'd say like if you haven't seen it, like it's even like just watch it from the beginning. Just see what it's all there. There's good stuff.
Also, we're sorry about everything we spoiled.
Yeah. If you made it this far and haven't seen Clone Wars, whoopsie.
Sorry, how bad.
I would say if you've seen it and you loved it and you have not dipped into Rebels or to the Marvel stuff from the last few years or to Resistance, please dip into that stuff. You are missing out on some brilliant continuation of a lot of these characters that you love and a lot of these situations that you love in ways that you cannot imagine. They are very, very good.
That's so good.
Star Wars employee.
Yeah, it's just because I'm a Star Wars employee and I get paid every time I say Star Wars. That was a nickel right there. But no, I know that a lot of people are like, well, I love Clone Wars, but Rebels, I'm not on board, or like Resistance, I'm not on board. Just remember, like, when you first watched that first season of Clone Wars, you were probably a kid, or you're definitely a lot younger than you were now. And so you came up with it. Give Rebels and Resistance a chance, especially through that first season when they're onboarding new kids so they can become and watch them because they're good, man. They're good.
Yeah.
I watched Rebels. Don't like it as much as the Clone Wars. Definitely worth a watch. It's still definitely a fun one to get on board with.
Yeah.
Still a lot of good stuff in there.
Definite genius move by the creators of Clone Wars to have the first episode have a bunch of Wattos in it.
Oh, I love a good Watto. You know I love a good Watto. Toydarians everywhere.
Watch season 1, Alana. There's lots of Wattos in the first episode.
Listen.
It's cheating.
Get some Toydarians. Get a couple Jar Jars up in there. Ooh.
Dude.
What did you think about the 4-episode arc in season 1 where the Toydarian and Jar Jar are handcuffed together and they go on multiple adventures? That's half of season 1.
That's a dream come true.
Fucking Jar Jar had a girlfriend this whole time.
Yes, and they smooch.
Oh my god.
Oh, do they smooch?
Oh, I love it so much. I think
they use the same tongues that they use to steal floating food.
It's so good. All right. Thank you both for joining me and entertaining me to talk about the Clone Wars today. Jacob, people know you. You're Jacob. Carboni, where can people find you?
I am the host of the Star Wars show. That is once a month on StarWars.com and YouTube.com/Star Wars. I also have a podcast called We Have Concerns. That's a science comedy podcast I host with Jeff Kanata. That's WeHaveConcerns.com. And I stream on Twitch because we're all trapped in our own personal escape pods right now. So that's twitch.tv/Anthony Carboni.
Cool. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Funhaus should be back next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Time to abandon ship.
Justice for Dexter Jetster.